We're not waiting for opportunity. We create an opportunity. We're not waiting for opportunity. We create an opportunity. Change. Change. Change causes people so much fear. Change causes people so much anxiety. Change causes people to even become complacent with their life in a negative way. And also cause people just to procrastinate. I'm going to tell you straight up why people fear change. People have an issue with change because it causes a lot of sacrifice. No security net. No security net when it comes to change because you've made a choice, right? What I mean by that when I say no security net when it comes to change. Change pulls things out of you that make you uncomfortable, you uneasy, that shows certain parts of your weaknesses out there to the world that you got to stand up on, and shows you your weakness that you got to walk away and feel for a period of time. So change takes you out of a comfort zone. Change takes you away from your security. Change takes you away from your fortress. You have to work in order to change. You have to work on yourself. You have to learn. You have to have the experience. You have to go through time. You have to be patient in order to change. So that's why I bring up change. Because the true reason that people have an issue with change is because, again, it makes them have to sacrifice themselves and pulls things out of themselves that they are uneasy with. Let me give an example, right? I'm going to give an example in the Bible with Moses. So, for supposedly the chosen children that went into the wilderness with their parents, who followed Moses, those people, those parents, right, had to believe in this change that's going to come. And they had to endure their mistakes that they made in these changes. Because they made a lot of different mistakes, and so did Moses, where they had to stay in the wilderness, what they say, for 40 years until they died off. But they had to accept that change and those mistakes from those changes so their future, their children, can get to the promised land. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? So in that parable, they had to leave the security, good or bad, that they knew. The security is what they knew, the stuff they knew, what they're used to, their routine of life, what they expected to see every morning, what was going to go on, if they liked it or not, for uncertainty, more uncomfortability, and possibility that they will not even make it to the promised land. Right? Martin Luther King, his last speech before he was assassinated, when he was campaigning, the Poor People campaign, right? This was after the Have a Dream speech, when he was still campaigning the Poor People campaign to try to get us land and, some kind of resources that we had rights to, right? Because of the work that we've done. So compensation for the work that we put into America. So his saying too, as well, he used that and he said, we're going to make it to the promised land, but I'm not probably going to see it. If you listen to it, he's like, even if I don't see it, he said, I probably won't see it, right? Basically putting himself as Moses, right? But think about what he's saying. I am making these sacrifices and uncomfortability of myself and my life for the future of my generations to come. So that him not being no longer comfortable with the routine of segregation, right? Racism, but truly human rights. him not being okay with human rights, right? That human rights for so-called black people, Negroes, were not correct, was wrong, was unjust, was immoral. The human rights of Negroes at the time, so-called black Americans, right? So he went on his path of change, which led him to a lot of uncomfortability and a lot of sacrifice, and showed a lot of weaknesses, things that he couldn't get past, that he had to keep on pushing through, and put his life in danger for future generations that he wouldn't even get to see. So when I use those two examples, well, from the Old Testament of the Bible, Moses, and then also using the late Dr. Martin Luther King, right, Jr., of his last speech before he was assassinated, using the same, like going to the promised land, right? Because you got to get to the promised land, right? You're going to the promised land, but you have to leave your home or what you know every day of your life. The life that you know, the life that you're used to, what you're accustomed to, you have to leave for the promise that was you made to yourself, that you're going to go to this promised land, that I'm going to see this, I'm going to get this. So I got to leave my comfortability, what I know, my routine, security, to go to a promise that I made to myself that I may not even make it to. But me going through the desert and being in there for 40 years and going through the mistakes and having consequences for my mistakes. That's the biggest one, right? A lot of us don't want to make the change because the consequences of our mistakes. And now we have to remember, consequences are not a bad thing, because consequences are relative. Because a consequence of an action can also be a good response from an action or a bad response from an action. However, they are a consequence of an action, right? That's all consequences are. The response of an action. So we are fearful of the negative consequences that might happen because we're going to make what? Mistakes. And mistakes you have to pay for. They cost. Mistakes cost. One way or another, internally, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, they cost. So this is where we get these anxiety with change. And this is why we allow other people to make changes for us instead of us making the change. And if we would just sit back and make our changes ourselves and go through that ourselves, it'd become easier every time it's time for us to make a change. And we would be aware of when it was time significantly to make a change. Another word we can use, learn, unlearn, relearn, right? Or other words. These are part of change, right? You got to unlearn something you learned your whole life to relearn something else, or to add something else, or to take away something else to add more for the change. And that's sacrifice that you have to make. That's putting yourself on the front line, putting your life on the front line, right? Showing all of your weaknesses on the front line, battling it, war. That's a war. That's a war. Self-change is a war. The battles is with everyone else. That's battles because there's more people out there. A war, we taking it out. That's you. What you taking out of yourself. So I think that's where the whole anxiety comes from with change. People say the uncertainty. The uncertainty. You don't know. That's what they keep putting out there. You don't know. You don't know. Shoot, you don't know if you go to sleep and you're going to wake up in the morning. You don't know who's going to knock on your front door. You don't know if you drive to work, if there's going to be an accident before you get to work, where you're going to be stuck in traffic. There's a lot of things you don't know that you don't have anxiety about. But the reason of change you have anxiety about, because it's focused on you. It's not focused on everyone else. It's you it's focused on. So the security we like and how we do things systematically, we expect a certain outcome that we don't have to do. Because think about it. Again, when we talk about the Moses and the Dr. Martin Luther Kings and the people who followed and the people who didn't get to see the promised land, right? They are the people who make the changes first, or the ones who gotta go through the mistakes and understanding and everything for the people after, the future generations, to have that security. So every security that you think you have now, from if it's employment, school, financial structure of what you learn, that was either from your parents going through that, or other people creating these concepts and going through all the hardship and pain of agony of losing sleepless nights to try to figure this out, not having a home, whatever it was for them to do to get to this A to Z point, and understanding and documenting that and giving you the template, which is the security. The template is your security. That was already done for someone who took the chance for the change, who made the change to go to the promised land. And they didn't even get to make it to the promised land, but they left you the template of everything they went through, so you knew what do's and don'ts not to do. Right? We go to college, we know. Okay, there's a thing out there. You go to college, right? Every class that you take during the week, you should study, I believe, 2 hours a day for. So if you have 4 classes a semester, you should be studying 5 days a week. Out of the 7 days, 5 days a week, you should be studying 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week for you to register that information and suck that information, to have that information in. So if you have 4 classes, that's 8 hours a day you should be studying, right? So that's 8 times 5. That's 40 hours a week you should be studying for you to have it, right? And they give you that template. So some people can do easier with certain classes because certain things they pick up on quickly because they were either taught it already or they took the chance to learn it more because it interested them. So templates are put out there, right? They make a whole curriculum and schedule for you for the classes, how you would do it. These are exams you're going to take. We're going to do these homeworks. You're going to do these assignments. You're going to practice these assignments, do these things to help you for the exams. So a template was made as someone who was trying to figure out other tests in themselves to understand information, and they passed it on as this is the best way for you to get this information. But when you have to get it yourself, it's totally different. You got to go through the hurdles they went through and not even be able to see it, possibly. So that's why I think where the issue comes with change. It shows us the best part of ourselves, the worst part of ourselves. It takes the security away from us and it points the finger at us, an internal war, and it costs for us to make mistakes. The mistakes cost, and we may not even get there. But what is going to grow in you, what is going to make in you, what is going to bring out in you is going to be a whole nother beast that you've never seen. And that's why the change is worth it. For your promised land. For you to get to your promised land. For you to get your generations to come to the promised land. You start it. Leave a template for them here. Don't just do things and not leave something for your children, your nieces, nephews, cousins, whoever, to not see, right? Leave something here for them because you did it and you don't leave no documentation. How are they supposed to know what it is? They know what you tried, but they don't know the intricate parts that you did of it. Leave a template for them and pass it on. So if you don't get to finish it, they can see it and they can see the last point because they're looking at it visually here, stepping back from it, not all involved. And they can see, oh, what about this part? Oh, and I know not to go to this. And now they get into the promised land. Now your generations to come are getting to the promised land because you took the chance for change. I'm not talking about changing your pocket because that don't go nowhere. Changing your pocket don't go nowhere. That's not even going to get you on the bus. Definitely not getting an Uber with that. But the change in here, yo, that's going to get you everything out there. and it's going to give your future generations more. So let's like calm down. The reason why anxiety is going to come, fear is going to come, worry is going to come. The unknown is already there every day, every moment, right? But we have no control over that, so why worry about it? Because I don't control that part. Let me just do my part and deal with the parts that I can deal with, right? And that's how we're going to create more opportunities. So we're not waiting for opportunity, we create an opportunity. We're not waiting for opportunity, we create an opportunity.